Right here, my name is Bill Silverby Richards, former entertainment champion for Congress. And this is Michael Jackson, honorary board member of the East Cleveland Straight Talk, and '88 was Bad Concert Tour. And also, we had a great time. Then I work with Joe Jackson also, he's at the bottom, he's an honorary member of the East Cleveland Neighborhood Center. And I'm doing some projects with Blu-ray technologies you'll hear about. But anyhow, you know, John Wilson and the whole crew out there, we're going to have a good time. Just want to thank God for keeping the legend continuing. Silver B, in the mix.
Get out of the way.
That's what you told me. I'm with you.
Again, I want to give you all a hand for being patient. We're very grateful. Thank you. Give yourself a hand. Thank you. Can everyone please stand in the spirit of song and in the country? Congressional Black Caucus, legislative leaders of America. We're going to have these young gentlemen perform a cappella our national anthem.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight
Let's give an hand to the Drop Boys. Give an hand to the Drop Boys. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Londell McMillan, and I thank you for your time and coming out this morning, on Saturday morning. Let's give one more hand to the Drop Boys. Wonderful. It's our future. God bless us. This morning we are very fortunate to have two distinguished members of the Congressional Black Caucus here. One from the great state of California, where we know Michael Jackson resided and his family resides, Congresswoman Diane E. Watson, from the 33rd District of California. And she will be bringing you greetings, along with my Congresswoman on the opposite coast, Congresswoman Yvette Clark from the great borough.
Yeah, she got a
So you see, from California to Brooklyn, New York, we've got a coast-to-coast representation. Share some words with us, and they convened this opportunity for us to have this illustrious panel of great thinkers, leaders, motivators, and business people around music, art, and culture to discuss Michael Jackson, a legend in life and death. So at this time, I'd like to bring to the podium first Congresswoman Diane Watson, followed by Congresswoman Yvette Clark. Thank you.
A good hand for Londell Martin, please. Good hand. The publisher of the Star. Good afternoon. When you were looking at the Doo-Wop Boys, did you see something building from the legacy of the one we're here to memorialize and to focus on for what he has left for all of us? Let's give a big hand of encouragement to the Doo-Wop Boys. I'm Congresswoman Diane Watson, representing the 33rd Congressional District in California. That's Los Angeles, Hollywood, and Culver City. As I travel the world, I introduce myself, you know, Diane Watson from Los Angeles, California, and people nod. But when I say Hollywood, everyone smiles. And so we want to talk about a young man and his family that really represented what the essence of creativity, talent, skill, precision that could reach around this globe 100 times. That's who Michael Jackson was. We want to focus on one in a family. There were 9 children, and Michael was one of the younger ones. And as you know, he started very early on. And one of the things that he always regretted in his short life is that he never got a chance to be a child. All of us need to go through a developmental process where we have the choice to be carefree, the choice to play, the choice to be a loving member of a family. He missed that. And often, I am told he would sit and look out the window as children played and started to cry. Now, I'm a teacher, and Delgado, a famous researcher, said, if you don't go through all the developmental stages, you're bound to repeat them somewhere along the way. And so many men tend to repeat a stage of life they forget. And so when you when you heard stories about Michael and Neverland and the children that would come there. He would play with the children because he had to relive the part of his life that he missed. And when he would open up his home and even his bedroom and his bed, you know, the slumber parties where you romped around on bed, that's what he was doing, reliving that part of his life. And don't let the tabloids tell you any different. All right? You understand what I'm saying? Because the impact he had on this world was confirmed right after he passed away in June. There were celebrations all over the globe because he created a genre that will have a legacy of brilliance that will live on forever. And he created music and dance and forms that no one else has been able to duplicate. You know, everyone is now trying to do the Michael Jackson. But when he came out with the skywalk, remember moonwalk? What do I know? I'm a different generation. But that moonwalk, people were amazed. And they saw it worldwide. Barbara, I hear your voice louder than anyone else. Stop it. We went to the CBC Foundation and said, you know, when we gathered thousands of people from all over the country, and some have come from abroad, in September, we need to do something to recognize the life and the creativity of this young man. And at 50, that's just half your life. I still call him young man. But we need to capture his spirit. We need to capture his reach. And he reached into places that you never heard of. Somebody here is from Aceh. Aceh is in a gulf right off of India. We've been there. And they have these terrible hurricanes and typhoons that come in and they sweep life away. When he can reach into that region of the world, when he can reach into Japan, when he can reach into France and Germany, and he can reach into Australia, and he can reach into Middle America, and the southern part. I'm not talking about South America, the southern part of America, and start something new, and something you don't know, because it's not always publicized, that Michael Jackson, during his life, was one of the largest philanthropists that this country has produced. And if he saw someone in need, a child or a family, he gave money. We have listed, and my colleague Sheila Jackson-Lee will be here any minute, but we listed on a resolution all, not all, but many of the contributions he made, not only here in this country, but worldwide. And you need to know that. And that resolution will become part of the congressional record soon. And as chair of the Congressional Entertainment Industry Caucus, we are going to see that that resolution passes through our House, the Senate, and becomes a record of this magnificent performer who lived and performed among us for not only the current generation, but those yet unborn. That is our pledge to you, and that is the reason why you sit here in a moment of history, and you will be part of it. And thank you so very, very much for attending this workshop this afternoon. And you're going to hear from experts, people who knew him personally, people who have a tremendous piece of the media, and the great and the brilliant Dr. West, whose family I've known for years up in Sacramento, look at Respond, and to my partners and the great Jesse Jackson and all of you, and my dear, dear colleague who is the co-chair of this year's conference and legislative conference. The foundation works with the CBC, Congressional Black Caucus, and this year, the person who has really been at the heart of it, who has done the work, who keeps a pleasant demeanor through all of this, and you don't know what it takes to put on this week and weekend. But I can't say enough about Yvette Clark, who hails from Brooklyn, New York.
To my colleague, Ambassador Congresswoman Diane E. Watson, I call her Lady Di, but she's so elegant. To our, yes, to the very distinguished panelists here assembled, to all of you, my brothers and sisters, it's certainly my honor, my privilege, first of all, to see that so many of you are here on the same vibe. We're here to just reflect a minute and to hear some words of wisdom and to pull from the experience, the collective experience that we've shared, knowing just intrinsically about this brother we know as Michael Jackson. I first want to thank my brother, however, Mr. Londell McMillan, Esquire. His partner, Ms. Tracy Walker, and the Source Magazine for coming up with this idea and hosting this wonderful event and bringing us together to honor the life and legacy and the legendary icon, Michael Joseph Jackson. The Source Magazine in particular, the world's second longest running rap periodical, which has grown into one of the largest, most influential hip-hop publications in the United States of America. This magazine is known as the Bible of hip-hop, has provided American youth with a forum for self-expression and social consciousness. It has worked diligently to advocate for and empower artists across our nation. And so we need to be very cognizant of that, who is providing us with our information. Tonight, as I acknowledge the dynamic personality of my fellow Brooklynite and dear friend Londell McMillan, Londell was one of Michael Jackson's attorneys in life, and Michael Jackson's mother, Miss Catherine Jackson's attorney currently, and has represented some notable artists of our time such as Prince, Stevie Wonder, Usher, and Kanye West. Yes, we got the brother. He's walking around trying to act like he don't know, but we know. First, I am humbled and honored to pay homage to a man who was loved, adored throughout the world, and whose legacy will live forever. I grew up watching Michael Jackson. I thought he was my age at one point in time. Then I calculated, because you know how you watch a reflection on television, you young, and you're looking at someone young, and you're like, that could be my brother, that could be my cousin, that could be my friend. I could marry Michael Jackson. You know what I'm saying? Do you remember the cartoon? Oh, they were bad when that came out. I would wake up early, Cheerios right in front of the TV. The Jackson 5 TV shows, the TV specials, the rivalry between the Osmonds and the Jacksons. They tried to break out with a show after the Jacksons came out with a show. But when I really reflected on it, to me, it was about Black power. Unleashed in such a magnificent way. Liberation through artistry and creativity, excellence, and intellect. People don't want to give it up for the intellect. But I know Dr. Cornel West is going to talk about that. Known as the King of Pop, Michael Jackson had many accomplishments. He was inducted twice into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He set multiple Guinness World Records, including the most successful entertainer of all time, winning 13 Grammy Awards and holding record 17 #1 singles, including the 4 as a member of the Jackson 5. Michael Jackson, also a notable philanthropist and humanitarian. He donated and raised millions of dollars through support of 39 charities, including his own Heal the World Foundation. The Heal the World Foundation was established in 1992 to rescue the world's most vulnerable, the children, the elderly, and animals from abuse and exploitation. The same year, during the Dangerous World Tour, Michael Jackson raised millions of dollars to provide relief and aid to developing nations. But you don't hear about that. There's a lot to be said out there, but the excellence, the precision with which this brother lived his life, and what he did with it. Michael Jackson broke racial barriers and became one of the first African-American artists to amass a strong following on MTV. It should be Michael TV, you know what I'm saying? They need to just give it up like that. He opened doors for not only black musicians worldwide, but he served as an ambassador for black music, transforming popular culture. Jackson was no stranger to politics either. He received the Presidential Public Safety Communications Award from President Reagan, 25 years ago at the White House. Jackson's first hit, Beat It, Jackson's hit single, Beat It, was also used in a TV and radio campaign against drunk driving, and Reagan thanked him for that. As we discuss the life, the legacy, and the mark Michael Jackson has left on our society, we must never forget the personal impact he has left on our lives. Many of us grew up with him, watched him grow up into the icon we know and love, and he will always reside with us. Make sure the children know. Give them what you know about Michael Jackson. Because you know, in our civil society, there's always this inclination to rewrite history. Yes. We got to tell our story of Michael Jackson, and each of us has one. I want to thank you all for, first of all, coming to this annual legislative conference, the 39th. It is our honor to host you here. And if you take anything from Michael's life, it was his boldness and his courage. People talk about Michael being timid. Nah, not that brother. That brother was breaking down barriers, blazing trails, lighting up the world so that all could see who we are truly about. Make sure that we hold that torch high and that we pass it on to our children. And thank you once again for coming to the conference. When you leave here inspired by what you hear today, go back to the community and get ready. Because Michael Jackson blazed the trail so that we could have our first African-American president, Barack Obama. That's pretty where it is. And Barack Obama leads us. This ain't no spectator sport. You got to engage to make the difference. And we're ready to do our part on the inside strategy. There's a call for you on the outside strategy. And if you don't believe that there's a call for you, look at what the opposition has done with health care and how they've depicted our president. We gotta be about it. And I know that Michael Jackson would want us to be about it. He would tell those other side folks, what'd you say, Lady Di? He would tell them to beat it. That's right. God bless y'all. God keep y'all. Enjoy the time.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Robinson. I'm the region co-anchor of Access Hollywood. A guy who I went to Spelman College in Atlanta, and he was in Morehouse. This is Cam Moody. He works with the Obama administration. He set up a tour of the West Wing of the White House that's starting at 2:15. So I'm going to talk to you for 2 minutes because he said, Sean, you got to be here at 2:15 or he ain't getting in. So I'm just hoping to see an Obama sighting while I'm there. But I wanted to be a part of this because Londell is such a great friend of mine, and I appreciate you inviting me here today, Londell. Congresswoman Watson and Clark, thank you very much. And I've got all my other buddies on the panel, my buddy Torrey, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Debra, Roland Martin, who needs to have his own comedy show, and the man who I think is the smartest, the most brilliant man on the planet. I mean, he can tell you that that tablecloth is black, and he can lay out an argument why that tablecloth is black, and you would believe him. I believe him. I say it's black tablecloth. Not that part down there, but Dr. Cornel West. So I'm just going to talk to you for just a couple of minutes, and I'm going to ask you to do something at the end of what I have to say. We have heard throughout this seminar, you will hear all about how wonderful Michael Jackson is. And I think the unfortunate thing is we are just all realizing how wonderful he is. You know, it's always like that after we lose somebody. You start to go back, and with YouTube we see, do you remember when he was on the Ed Sullivan Show and he and his brothers came out with that, he had that big old purple hat on and he was singing Who's Loving You, and you're like, oh man, Michael, God, 10 years old and he's like singing like that. And I just remember meeting him. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and he came to the Motown Museum once, and we got just to say hello to him, and I will always remember that. I got a chance, since I've been at Access Hollywood, to go out to Neverland. They had a 75th birthday party for Joe Jackson out at Neverland. I remember just walking around the compound and just seeing all the candy stands and the roller coasters and the movie theaters. Michael had in Neverland, had this big, that zoo, that reptile house, and you go in and there was this 33-foot long anaconda snake inside the reptile house. But there were, just giraffes and tigers and all sorts of animals in the zoo. And I was like, gosh, this is a really, really cool place. Really cool place. And you could see the love that he had for many of the children that came there to Neverland, and just how they had such a great time. It was like a world that many of these kids had never, ever seen before. I was in the makeup room the other day, and LaToya Jackson walks in, because Access Hollywood just hired LaToya before, our correspondent for Dancing with the Stars. So watch every week as she's on Dancing with the Stars, and she was just talking, though she doesn't talk about, Michael, and you don't ask her anything unless, she wants to bring it up. But I've interviewed Janet Jackson many times, and I remember her saying, this was a couple of years ago, I was saying, tell me about your brother, the relationship that you have with Michael. She says, when they were little, Michael used to call her names, just to kind of tease her and mess with her. And I was like, what did he call you? She said, I can't tell you, because I can't tell you, because that's so little. I said, no, tell me, what did he call you? And she whispers in my ear, she says, slaughter hog. Whoa, that's kind of tough to hear when you're a little gal there. I remember when I was sitting in, this has been like two and a half months now. I was sitting in the hair salon, and I was just kind of on my BlackBerry, and I started getting all these messages from work on my BlackBerry. And I was like, I don't feel like answering any of these. And this woman comes up to the hairstylist and she said, did you hear Michael Jackson was taken to the hospital? And they said he died. And I kind of looked, and I was like, God, we should get out of here, please, you know, that crap. Because you know, you hear stories like this all the time. Somebody supposedly happened and then it didn't. And then I looked down and I had, from work, I had about 70 messages on my BlackBerry. And I started reading it and I really remember feeling just this tingling feeling just all throughout my body and just numb. And I said, no, it can't be true. And the hairstylist had finished my hair and I went out to the car and I just sat there for a minute. And I looked at my BlackBerry again and more like maybe 150 messages came through. And I go, that can't be true. And then the other days were just like a blur. And I don't think it really sunk in for me until we were watching the memorial service. And Michael's daughter came up to the podium. She started talking about her father. And what I was going to ask you to do is, so often, especially in the entertainment business, you know, now we're talking about his philanthropy. Now we're talking about how much he meant to us. Now we're saying he wrote the soundtrack to our life. Now we're talking about it. This is something we needed to be talking about before. And the reason that we don't talk about it, the reason that you have, and I have these debates with management all the time, let's not focus on that, let's focus on this, let's focus, and they say, that's what the public wants. That's what's going to buy magazines. If we have a cover about all the horrible things that this person is going through, and we have a cover about how great they are, you're going to buy the one that has a horrible cover. So the media feeds off what they think you want to hear. And the more you voice, you don't want to hear that stuff. You want to hear more positive stories. You want to hear what makes a person great. The more you start saying that, the more you will see reflection of that when you turn on the television. They think that all you want to hear is the bad stuff. That's what they think. They think you are interested in nothing else. So, gosh, I wish Michael had heard about all these wonderful things when he was still here. I wish that we were talking about his philanthropy when he was still here. I wish he knew how much we miss him. So start letting your voices be heard. Start calling CNN, start calling Access Hollywood, start calling NBC, start calling MSN, start calling all of your shows and say, I don't want to hear that. I'm going to turn you off if you're reporting this. Or I'm not going to buy that magazine cover if you're reporting that. Start letting your voices be heard so the next time the people will know how much we care about them and how much we love them before they are gone. Thank you. I got to get to the White House.
Okay, we're going to get right into the panel, but I believe it, Congresswoman Watson, you wanted to make one final announcement.
I want you to know that the Los Angeles community, the state of California, and the nation were all concerned about Michael Jackson's death. And in contact with the family and the people who handle his career, we've all met, and I assured them that anything untoward about Michael will come out into the open because the Federal Bureau of Investigation is involved in this lengthy investigation. So just know that you might be sitting there and saying, what is taking so long? They are studying every intricate detail about his life and his death and what happened afterwards. So just know that in a short while, justice will out and justice will be done. Have faith.
Okay, again, thank you all for your patience. We're going to talk about the joy. We're also going to talk about some of the pain, the lessons learned, the life, the legacy of Michael Jackson. Or in so many ways, the joy that he brought to so many of us. There were lessons that we should learn about life and dealing with pain, and how many of us deal with issues ranging from depression and sickness. And in spite of what you may see or what you may think for celebrities and others who are icons and idols, they're human, and we all have pain. And my sister Terry Williams here, who's a pain activist, who's been very much around getting us as a community to deal with our pain, was kind enough to put that on the top of my mind. Before I introduce Teray, who will be our panelist to discuss these issues with this distinguished group, I just also want to recognize a woman here who's very, very near and dear to many of us here. She comes from New York, but she's a woman of our world. She's Queen Mother Adelaide Sanford, and I'd just like her to say hello. And Dr. Cornel can give a hand to Queen Mother Adelaide Sanford and have her come and greet you. And once she greets you, we'll get into our panel, and you will know right away why I'd asked her to greet you in the love and spirit of peace. Queen Mother Adelaide Sanford, thank you so much.
My beloved ones, my extraordinarily gifted, talented, resilient ones. We're here today because we want to talk about our son, our brother, our grandson. We're here today using the hackneyed, worn-out language of the oppressor. Would that we had our own language that would not be tarnished and disfigured. But Michael Jackson is the epitome of taking that which is foreign to you and giving it such pizzazz, such polish, until the words were as though they had never been spoken before. And his dance was as though there had never been a dancer born, and his creativity, his effulgence, his magnificence transcended anything that had ever been seen or heard. Why is it that we didn't know about his tenderness, about his bliss, about his pain, about his agony? Because he wore the mask. And we are so proficient in wearing the mask. But beneath that mask, there was pain and passion and genius. And I commend all of you to remember that they didn't change the rules of the game in sports. They didn't change the notes in music. But you, Michael gave it a pizzazz, gave it an infinite resonance that had never been heard before. And my beloved brother, son, here, Londell, look what he's doing for that family. Look how he is changing the rules of the law for them. And he was my student in elementary school, and I've never let him go. As an elder in the African community, I give you the power and the capacity to know that you are beloved, special, extraordinary, gifted, talented. And when the time comes, don't sit it out, dance.
give her a hand. Let's give our elder a hand. Okay, Brother Teray. Teray is an American novelist, music journalist, cultural critic, writer. Extraordinary brother who's been a contributor in so many different forms of media, from MSNBC to Rolling Stones to BET to many others. Many of these people we're going to save the long-winded introductions because many of them you know. So without further ado, and to speed things up and to get us through, put your hands together for Teray, who will moderate this.
Never be eclipsed, will never be equaled. He started life with a handful of aces, right? Singer, dancer, producer, songwriter, he could do everything. But I think he perhaps started at a bad table, right? Gary, Indiana, Nowhereville. But he had his father who pressed him forward into the limelight. And he also had at least two incredible breaks of luck. Malcolm Gladwell in Outliers talks about you have to have the historical moment with you as sort of the wind beneath your wings to be able to get somewhere. Michael Jackson does this twice. In Outliers, Malcolm points out people doing it once. He comes along in the 60s when there's this integrationist push in America, right? So he gets behind the power of Motown, and a white America says, hey, we really should pay attention to this guy. And then again in the 80s, when we start to have a really ascensionist push, people like Reverend Jackson running for president, Bill Cosby, #1 television show in America, and here comes Michael Jackson saying, I want to be the #1 artist in the world. And it didn't happen by accident. In the program at the People's Funeral at the Staples Center, LaToya tells the story of how he went to the Grammys behind Off the Wall in '79. I think they gave him 1 Grammy, was it? Something like some paltry number, and he was like, oh, no. But next time, my room will be filled with Grammys, and they will know my greatness. You know, but there was so much. I mean, he comes from amazing schools. We talk about education. He comes from 2 amazing schools. Being able to sit in the wings and watch Jackie Wilson and James Brown and Diana Ross. So to be able to take his talent and to see them, what they're doing. And then with Berry Gordy and being around Berry and Suzanne DePass and Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, all of them teaching him even more. So by the time he gets to be a solo artist in '79, as still a very young man, he has the power to be able to have control over his career. He says, I want Quincy Jones to produce Off the Wall, and then subsequently Thriller. The label said no. Quincy's too jazzy. He won't know how to make hits. Michael, very rare among solo artists, new solo artists, was able to say, no, this is the guy, and we're going with him. Later for you. He's able to get that power. The Off the Wall and Thriller would not have happened in their way without Quincy Jones. More than that, by '82, when Thriller comes along, he'd been a star for well over a decade. Household name. How many people on their second album are already household names? It's very rare. So he's able to flip it and to put MTV, which had not been playing black artists at all, because they'd been following the white radio paradigm of just playing rock artists, he was able to use the power of his music, his force in America, Walter Yetnikoff from CBS, Sony, to say, we're going to withhold all our artists unless you play this guy. And they said, well, he's pretty good. So we'll take him. And he's making movies, not videos, but movies. So he transforms MTV, not on just a racial level, but on an aesthetic level. And I would say that nobody has come close to the video oeuvre that Michael Jackson created. And they had a lot of time to catch up. But not just that, the perfect storm really takes force in the early '80s when the yuppie era is coming in. The CD, the compact disc is new. For the younger people, that's what we did before MP3s. He's looking at me like, what are you talking about with these CDs? So America had all this new disposable income. Yuppies and buffies are going around. They want music to play in their cars with their new CDs. And here comes Thriller. This perfect pop thing, which is rock, which is soul, which is make you want to dance, make you want to cry. There's something for every part of your soul. Michael Jackson was not just you know, the son of James Brown, who was also the son of Audrey Hepburn, right? He's not just this black figure, he also had enough in him that white people felt comfortable and palatable and able to love him. You know, and I still personally haven't fully processed that he's gone at the end of Entourage last week. They played I Want to Be Where You Are. And I listen to Michael Jackson music all the time now, but you know, that's when I put the iPod on and I say, okay, I'm ready for Michael, I'm gonna play. This was Michael coming into my life at a moment when I wasn't expecting it. I'm in Entourage zone, right, with Turtle and Jamie Lynn Sigler. And suddenly here comes young Michael, that perfect voice. And I got chills, and it was like, wow, it was like, you know, when you run into a photograph of your dead friend when you're not ready. It threw me off. I was like, totally messed me up. I think a lot of us are still messed up behind Michael's death, sudden as it was, untimely as it was. Perhaps he was cresting again, our brother snatched from us. So this august panel is going to dig into who he was for us. I think you know most of these people by now, but I'm just going to call out some names just so we're clear. Congresswoman Diane Watson, representing Hollywood. Londell McMillan was Michael Jackson's attorney, is Kathy Jackson's attorney. Of course, you know Reverend Jackson. You know Debra Lee, the chairman, or we should say chairperson, and CEO of BET. I'm going to skip you 1 second, sir. Roland Martin from CNN and TV One, and the intellectual Michael Jordan.
I don't think Mike was that good.
Maybe we should say the Michael Jackson of intellect. But let's just dive right into it. Let's go down the line this way. Congresswoman first. She's gonna leave. So, well, Londell, what did Michael mean to you? And take it personally, aesthetically, musically, whatever way you want to go.
Well, as a host, I'll take host privileges and say, since I've been speaking already, I'm going to pass it on and quickly just pass it on to my panel to speak on it. But what he was to me was a client and then a friend and the son of a mother who I feel very strongly that we can never support anyone that would not support the mother of any child to have a seat at any table of that family at any time. And so that's what Michael is in our legacy. So I'll pass it on so that others can speak. Thank you.